The loudest person in the room is the weakest person in the room. You've been lied to. Society tells you to network, post your wins, share your goals, build your personal brand. That advice is a trap, and the people who follow it are bleeding power with every post. Low-key people know something you don't. They operate with 3 psychological barriers that make them untouchable, invisible, dangerous. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how silence becomes a weapon, how invisibility becomes armor, and how staying low-key lets you build empires while everyone else is still announcing their plans. But first, you need to understand why your brain is working against you. Here's what happens when you tell someone your goal. Your brain releases dopamine, the same chemical you get when you actually achieve the goal. Scientists call this premature gratification. You get the reward without doing the work. Derek Sivers studied this at MIT. When people announced their intentions, they were 33% less likely to follow through. Your brain can't tell the difference between doing and talking about doing. Low-key people understand this instinctively. They never announce, they never explain. They just appear one day with the results. Think about it. When was the last time someone who constantly posted about their startup actually built something that mattered? The correlation is inverse. More talk equals less execution. Why? Because talking satisfies the social recognition drive. You get validation, comments, likes. Your nervous system thinks you've already succeeded. The question isn't whether you want success. The question is whether you want the feeling of success or the reality of it. Low-key operators choose reality. They starve their ego, feed their execution. Here's the neuroscience. Your prefrontal cortex processes goal achievement and social recognition through nearly identical pathways. When you announce a goal publicly, your brain floods with dopamine as if you've completed it. This triggers what psychologists call the substitution effect. The announcement becomes a substitute for the accomplishment. Your motivation dies, not because you're lazy, but because your brain already got paid. Low-key people exploit this by creating an internal feedback loop. They measure progress privately, they celebrate wins alone, they keep their nervous system hungry. But there's something deeper here, something most people never see. Unpredictability is the ultimate form of social power. When people can't categorize you, they can't control you. When they can't predict you, they can't manipulate you. When they don't understand your moves, they can't counter them. This is called strategic ambiguity in game theory. The less information you give, the more options you maintain. Every time you reveal your hand, you lose leverage. Low-key people live in the gap between what others know and what others assume. That gap is where power lives. Watch how billionaires move. Zuckerberg bought Instagram for $1 billion. No one saw it coming. Bezos built AWS while everyone thought he just sold books. Musk acquired Twitter in silence until the moment of execution. The pattern is identical: maximum preparation, minimum disclosure. But here's the dark part most people miss. When you're visible, you become a target. People who broadcast their success attract 2 things: admirers and adversaries. The admirers waste your time, the adversaries waste your energy. Low-key people avoid both. They don't inspire, they don't threaten, they just operate. There's a concept in espionage called grey man theory. The idea is simple. The most effective operative is the one nobody remembers, not because they're hiding, but because they blend perfectly into the background. Low-key high performers apply this same principle to business and life. They dress average, they speak in measured tones, they never dominate conversations. But behind that ordinary exterior, they're running calculations that most people couldn't comprehend. Social psychologists discovered something fascinating. People unconsciously assign status based on visibility and expressiveness. The person who talks most is perceived as the leader, even when they're completely incompetent. Low-key people exploit this bias. They let others perform. They let others take credit. They let others believe they're winning. Meanwhile, they're acquiring the actual assets, the actual skills, the actual relationships that matter. Comment observer if you've ever noticed this in someone you respect. The most dangerous person in any room is the one you forgot was there. But staying low-key isn't about hiding, it's about something far more sophisticated. Most people live in 24-hour cycles. Wake up, react, sleep, repeat. Low-key people live in decade cycles. Remember the video on this channel about thinking 10 years ahead? This is where it connects. When you're building something that won't pay off for a decade, you can't afford the distraction of daily validation. This is the law of delayed gratification applied to identity itself. Think about Satoshi Nakamoto, created Bitcoin, changed the world, never revealed his identity. Why? Because the mission was bigger than the ego. Or look at the programmer who built Signal. Moxie Marlinspike stayed relatively unknown while building one of the most important privacy tools in human history. These aren't accidents, these are strategies. When you commit to a 10-year vision, you realize something profound. The opinions of people who think in months are irrelevant. The applause of people who won't be there at the finish line is meaningless. Key people make a calculated trade. They give up short-term social status for long-term structural power. Here's where it gets psychological. Humans are wired for immediate social feedback. For 200,000 years, tribal approval meant survival. Getting exiled meant death. So your brain constantly scans for social validation signals. This creates what researchers call present bias. Your brain overvalues immediate rewards and undervalues future rewards, even when the future reward is exponentially larger. Low-key people have rewired this circuit. They've trained their nervous system to get satisfaction from progress itself, not from recognition of progress. This is the key distinction. They're not suppressing their need for validation, they're redirecting it. Instead of seeking external approval, they've built internal measurement systems, personal benchmarks, private scorecards. Every day they're not distracted by performance is a day closer to the outcome that actually matters. And in 2026, this is becoming the dominant strategy for a specific type of person. There's a new category emerging. Psychologists are calling them Otroverts, not introverts who can't socialize, not extroverts who need attention, something different. Otroverts are socially capable people who choose to stay untethered. They can turn on charisma when needed, network when it serves them, but they default to silence. Why is this rising now? Because information overload has created a new scarcity. The scarcest resource in 2026 isn't money or time, it's attention. And the second scarcest resource is privacy. Low-key people in 2026 have both. While everyone else is hemorrhaging attention on 7 platforms and exposing their entire lives for algorithmic approval, Otroverts are building in the dark. They're not antisocial, they're strategically social. Every interaction has a purpose, every revelation has a reason. This is the evolution of power, from broadcast to precision, from exposure to selection, from performance to execution. The old model was be visible to be valuable. The new model is be invisible to be invaluable. Look at the data. LinkedIn reports that the most successful executives post 60% less than mid-level managers. The most profitable entrepreneurs have social media followings smaller than moderately successful influencers. The highest paid consultants have almost no online presence. The correlation is undeniable. The higher the actual power, the lower the public profile. Why? Because Otroverts understand attention economics. Every minute you spend managing your image is a minute you're not spending building your empire. Every post you make is a data point for competitors. Every story you share is intelligence for adversaries. In military strategy, there's a concept called OPSEC, operational security. The principle is simple. The enemy can't disrupt operations they don't know about. Otroverts apply OPSEC to their entire lives, not because they're paranoid, but because they're strategic. They understand that in a world where everyone broadcasts everything, the person who controls their information controls their destiny. But here's what ties everything together. Low-key people understand one final truth. Real power doesn't announce itself. Real wealth doesn't display itself. Real influence doesn't explain itself. When you need to tell people you're powerful, you're not. When you need to show people you're wealthy, you're not. When you need to prove you're influential, you're not. This is the paradox of demonstration. The more you demonstrate, the less you possess. Low-key people build empires in silence because empires built in silence can't be dismantled by noise. No one can attack what they can't see. No one can copy what they don't understand. No one can compete with what they don't know exists. This is why the richest families you've never heard of stay families you've never heard of. Why the most powerful networks operate without names. Why the most significant innovations happen in labs you'll never visit. The architecture of real power is invisible by design. Think about the Medici family. They controlled Florence for centuries, not through military force, through invisible financial networks. They stayed low-key while literally funding the Renaissance, or consider the Rothschild banking dynasty. At their peak, they financed entire nations, yet most people couldn't name 3 living members of the family today. This is intentional obscurity, strategic anonymity, calculated invisibility. The formula is consistent across centuries. Accumulate assets, not audience. Build infrastructure, not image. Create leverage, not likes. There's a term in intelligence work called the grey cardinal. It refers to someone who exercises power without holding office, someone who influences outcomes without public recognition. Every corporation has grey cardinals: the lawyer who structures the deals, the CFO who allocates the capital, the strategist who maps the expansion. None of them are on magazine covers. All of them are indispensable. Low-key people aspire to be grey cardinals in their own domains. Essential but invisible, powerful but unmarked, influential but unnamed. So what does this mean for you? Understanding the psychology is one thing. Actually staying low-key is another. Because here's the brutal truth. Your ego will fight you every single day. You'll want to post the win. You'll want to correct the person who underestimated you. You'll want to show everyone who doubted you that they were wrong. That urge isn't weakness, it's biology. Your brain is designed to seek status, to broadcast competence, to ensure the tribe knows your value. Low-key people don't eliminate this drive, they channel it. Instead of broadcasting to hundreds, they demonstrate to one, their mentor, their partner, themselves in the mirror. Instead of posting their wins, they journal them. Private documentation creates the same dopamine hit without the information leak. Instead of arguing with doubters, they let time do the arguing. Results are the only rebuttal that matters. Here's the tactical framework. 3 rules. Rule 1. Never announce what you're starting. Only reveal what you've finished. Rule 2. Never defend your choices. Let outcomes defend them. Rule 3. Never celebrate publicly what you haven't secured privately. A deal isn't done until the money moves. A goal isn't achieved until the metric hits. A transformation isn't real until the behavior sticks. Low-key people live by these rules because they understand something fundamental. Every word you speak is a liability. Every image you post is data. Every claim you make is a promise you might not keep. Silence eliminates all 3 risks. But here's where most people fail. Right now, you have a choice. You can keep broadcasting, keep performing, keep bleeding power through exposure, or you can go dark, build in silence, let your results do the talking that your mouth won't do. But here's the problem. Silence is uncomfortable. Your brain fights it, your ego hates it, your nervous system thinks you're being ignored. The withdrawal from validation feels like actual physical pain, because it is. Social rejection activates the same neural pathways as physical injury. If you want to master staying low-key, you need to understand how high performers rewire their psychology to handle invisibility without breaking. The mental frameworks that let you operate in silence while everyone around you drowns in noise. The specific techniques to satisfy your need for recognition without leaking information. The daily practices that keep your ego in check while your empire expands. That's exactly what the next video breaks down. The neuroscience of operating in the dark. How to stay motivated when nobody's watching. How to build self-worth that doesn't depend on external validation. Click it now. Because understanding why silence is power is useless if you can't actually maintain the silence. Before we continue, if this perspective on power and psychology resonates with you, subscribe to this channel. We break down the strategies high performers use that nobody talks about. No fluff, no motivational nonsense, just the dark psychology and strategic frameworks that actually work. Now let's get into implementation.